So, Jim, it's not often that we can coax our master painter out of the field and into the loft. What's on your dance card?
Well, Steve, we've received quite a few questions on the care and feeding of paintbrushes. Do you happen to have anything like that hidden in your basement?
In my basement, Jim? Heck, I'm around professionals all the time. I would never treat a paintbrush like this, so you wouldn't find anything like that in my shop.
Well, Steve, for those mere mortals out there who may have this problem, I'd like to offer a few suggestions on how to extend the life of their old brushes and keep them looking new.
Well, I look forward to that, Jim. Maybe I do have one or two of these down south. Tom!
Hey, Steve.
How are you?
Pretty good.
What are you doing with this in the middle of your shop?
What does it look like, Steve? It looks like a door frame. I thought my end of the loft needed a door frame. What do you think?
Aha. What's the real story?
Well, the real story is we got an email from a viewer. And they have some ornate trim and failing plaster. They wanted to take the trim off and save it. They're concerned about how to get the nails out without disturbing the face of the trim. So what I did is I cut this whole door frame, jamb, and everything out of the wall on the project that we're working on and brought it over.
So you're going to show us how to get the nails out without trashing the trim. That's where these tools come in.
Right, right.
You need all of these to pull the nails?
Well, not necessarily for what I'm going to do, but in different situations you need a different tool. So I'm going to show you how to do it.
But I suspect it's all about the technique, right?
Technique.
I look forward to that, Tom.
Okay.
Now, you may wonder what a snowblower is doing in the middle of the loft. Well, turns out, if you want this thing to start when the snow flies, you better do some maintenance on it right now. Roger Cook is going to show us how to do that. And Richard Trethewey is off on assignment. He got a call from a school teacher in the town of Reading, which is not too far away, who complains that every time she turns her heat on in the fall, for the first time, it won't start, and she's got to call a plumber, and that's expensive. Richard thinks he knows why it won't start, and he's got an elegant solution.
There it is, 107.
Wow.
June, hi, I'm Richard Trethewey from Astisol House.
Good to meet you. Come in.
Nice to be here. Now, we got your email that said you had a problem with the heating system.
I do.
Tell me about it.
My heat is in the fall, when I go to put it on for the first time each year, I get no heat.
Okay.
They're cold.
No, I can see here, this is baseboard. Looks like it's pretty old baseboard, too. How
Yes,
long
it
you
is.
been
That's probably 40 years old or more.
here? Wow. Now, what do you do when you have this problem?
I then call the plumber, and he'll come and he'll go from room to room, and he'll open the little vent and bleed the air out of them.
Gotcha. So that fixes it for then, but it comes back again.
It comes
every
back
year.
each fall.
Does he have any other recommendations that might fix it?
Not at this point, he doesn't.
All right.
I haven't heard any.
Well, let me take a peek in the basement and see if I can come up with anything.
Okay,
Great.
thank you. Richard, what are you finding?
Well, it's a vintage 1955 heating system.
Definitely.
Gas-fired, really simple. Heated water comes up through this pipe and goes out to 2 zones. Comes back through 2 return pipes here. They just get circulated around like 2 Ferris wheels. Simple. But up here is an expansion tank. An expansion tank is really important for this system. As you heat water, it needs a place to go. Otherwise, the pressure builds up. This thing is half filled with water, half filled with air. Now, some of that air that's in that tank can get into the same water that's going out through the baseboard, and it can cause a bubble. If there's a bubble in that piping, no heated water is going to pass, and you're going to have no heat like you complained about. They come and bleed the baseboard. They come and drain the expansion tank. The cycle's repeated. I have a valve that I could put on here that would scour every bit of air that comes through there, so you wouldn't have to do that.
Really?
Sound interesting?
Definitely does.
Let me run to my truck. Well, there it is. This valve, for about $150, will eliminate the air problem here. If you had X-ray eyes, it would look like this inside. Water passing through the pipe hits these small pins, really like a wire brush, Any air bubbles that are in here will bubble up into this upper chamber and go out through a special valve at the top that only lets air go out. I've made my marks. Now it's time to cut with a reciprocating saw. Here I'm applying flux to the cleaned copper parts. Flux is really important to get a good bond with the solder. Now, there's plenty of play on this pipe, so I can move it out of the way. And I want to make sure I get the pipes in all the way into the bottom of the fitting so it's a nice tight seat, and I want no water in the piping. You cannot solder a fitting if it's got water in it. Now, I don't want to put the solder into the flame. That's no fair. I want to put it on the back side of the fitting, the farthest away from the flame, actually. Not hot enough yet. When you touch it, it should go immediately. Okay, and when it starts to go, it goes. It draws right around. And when I'm finished, I wipe it with a clean rag, and I'm on to the next one. No leaks, no hits, no runs, no errors, nobody left on base. And if we turn on this circulator pump, we should hear some air. There it is, coming up through that. It'll run for probably 20 minutes. It'll be all cleaned up. Let's go tell the homeowner. Joan?
Yes.
Well, I don't think you'll have to worry about bleeding your radiators again.
Thank you.
But if you do, give me a call.
I really appreciate
Great.
what you've done.
We'll have a nice
Thank you.
warm winter.
Thanks.
See you. Thanks for letting us stop by.
Well, Tommy, I installed one of those vents. It works great.
Well, it sounds like Richard did a good thing.
I think you did.
Yeah.
So removing trim without destroying it.
Right, Steve. Well, the first thing is you have to realize how it's applied to the wall and to the jamb. Usually an 8-penny finish nail, sometimes a 6-penny finish nail. These nails are driven through the casing into the jamb, usually every 8, 12, or even 16 inches, also into the frame structure below.
Well, that's the typical situation, but you don't know what you'll find when you get out there in the field.
You're right. You never really know. You just hope. The first thing you want to do is you want to break the paint seal between the casing and the jamb, and the easiest way to do that is simply a utility knife and running it down, making a cut in the paint. Breaks the connection easily. Now, I always want to start at the bottom, because if I do any damage, it's not going to be obvious. You're not going to see it.
So if you did it up there at eye level, it'd be more difficult to conceal.
That's right. Simply take a putty knife, hold it on an angle, so you use the corner of it, tap it in between the jamb. Basically, I want to slide it up slightly. Now, what I've done is I've created an opening. See that space? Now I'm just simply going to go to a little bit thicker bar.
Look at that, little tiny bar. Looks like a toy.
Looks like a toy, but it works wonders, believe me. Now I'm going to tap this one in. Yeah. Now I've started to break my seal. I'm going to work up a little more with my knife. Now, the key to here, without doing damage, is not to push this way, because this becomes a fulcrum, and I'll dent the edge. So I have to pull back slightly this way. Now I'm going to work this bar in. I'm going to come up higher, pull it a little bit. Now I'm going to use both bars at the same time.
So just slowly, slowly, you work your way.
You've got to go slow. The wood is probably old. It could be brittle, and it will break, and I don't want that to happen.
Well, the side casing came off without any damage at all. Now, what about the head casing?
Head casing is actually a little bit easier. I don't have to worry about using my putty knife to start. I can go right at it, right here at the end with the big bar. If any damage is done by the big bar, when we reapply the trim, it'll be concealed.
Gently, gently. Look at that. Clean as a whistle, Tom.
That was the objective, wasn't it?
Well, you still have the nails to deal with. If you try to drive them down through, you'll trash the face of it.
Right. Let me show you what'll happen when we do that.
That one actually wasn't so bad. Sometimes you get a big tear out
Let's
that's
try a couple
completely
more.
unacceptable.
See, hardwood, that'll splinter. That's all splinter, Steve. And the harder the wood, the worse the damage.
All right. So, what's the trick?
Well, we can simply take my claw hammer and snap it on the nail like that, putting force on it. I can roll the hammer forward and back, and that pulls the nail right out.
And look, no
damage.
visible damage whatsoever.
But when that doesn't work, I'll go after them with what I call end nippers. Now, these nippers grab the nail. I hold it firmly. I don't want to squeeze too tight because I will actually cut the nail. See that? No damage again.
No damage yet. Well, let me give it a shot.
All right.
Oh!
Well,
Now, I can still probably grab a hold of it, but what if I was to cut it flush by accident.
Okay,
And
well
then
then
you're messed up.
you go after it with these right here. These are locking pliers with a rod and a weight.
Yeah.
File the tip down to make it like a point. I position it over the nail, and right there, and I bang it. I lock it on the nail,
Yeah.
and squeeze it, and roll it.
Wow. Look at that.
There's the nail. Check the damage.
That is
No
awesome.
damage.
That is awesome. Where do I get one of these?
You don't, Steve. You make it.
You make it, huh? Great tips, Tom. Thanks very much.
Okay, Steve.
Well, Roger, you're no stranger to gasoline engines of various sorts on chainsaws, weed whackers, lawnmowers, and snowblowers. How do you keep them all running reliably?
Well, Steve, the snow blowers we start on November 1st to get them ready for the snow before it snows. The first thing we do is pull the plug. Now, take a look at that one.
Well, it's a little carboned up, Roger, but it's not too bad.
Well, compared to this new one, I think it's pretty dirty. I think that'll make it hard to start and not run well. So for $3, I'm going to put in a new plug.
Now, in the old days, we would have cleaned this up, regapped it, and used it for another season.
Well, if you want to do that, you're welcome to keep it.
Oh, attitude, Roger.
Now I lubricate all the grease fittings, in particular these ones on the auger.
They're using a small grease gun that you can keep right in the kit with the rest of your tools for the snowblower. That's smart.
That's right. And when I do this lubrication on the augers, it reminds me to get a bunch of these shear pins.
Shear pins.
Right. They're located here, Steve. They connect the auger to the central gear drive.
And the idea is if you hit a rock or a stump, they'll break right there, and it won't trash the gears.
Right. Try finding a bunch of those at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday in the middle of a snowstorm. Make sure you have some.
Time to fuel it up, huh?
Yep, what I'm doing, Steve, is I'm adding fuel stabilizer to fresh gas.
Now, is that important?
You don't know when you're going to use this gas. It could be sitting around for months, and it'll go stale. You want fresh gas that's going to fire right away for you, help the engine start easily.
Of course, you have remembered to drain the tank and run the carburetor dry at the end of the previous winter.
That's just essential. So let's fuel it up, fire it up, and see how it runs.
All right, Roger. We're ready for the snow. Well, you haven't gotten too far with this one, Jim.
Steve, I think this one's too far gone. It's not an expensive brush in the first place, and it's not worth the chemicals or the labor.
All right,
To
so
try
we're
to
going to
save it.
chuck that one.
Right.
We sent out a call for distressed brushes, and this is one of the ones we got back. Somebody put it in a plastic bag to try to keep it fresh, which is a pretty good idea,
That's a
I
good
guess.
technique.
But they forgot about it.
Yeah.
So it's hard as a rock.
It's hard as a rock. It's a China bristle brush. It's too bad because it probably did a lot of good work, but again, I think it's too far gone to
All
save.
right, so we'll check this one too. What would you try to save?
Well, I've got one soaking here, a brush that is probably $15, $17. In this one, we would save.
What happened?
It looks like somebody cleaned it. It's not chock full of paint, but they left paint at the top of the bristles, and they didn't clean off the ferrule.
So you're soaking it in something.
Right.
What is it?
It's a strong solvent, a commercial brush cleaner.
You leave it overnight?
If you leave it overnight, the bristles will turn much, much too soft.
So a couple
It will be
hours.
right. Just keep testing it.
How do you work the paint out of it once it's soft?
Well, I've got one here that I've been soaking. I would start with a brush comb, very sharp needle points.
Where do you get one of those?
You can get one of these at a real paint store,
Okay,
professional paint store.
professional.
Yeah, and they'll sell them right. They'll have them hung on the rack right along with the brushes. And you want to push that in way up at the top of the heel of the bristles, where it's very hard and stiff.
All right.
And just try to separate it, work out the old dried paint. And here's another tool that you could use. It's just a kitchen tool.
Vegetable brush?
Vegetable brush, brass bristles,
Soft.
right? You don't want to destroy the bristles you're trying to save.
All right. So it takes some patience. Soak it, brush
Soak it again,
soak
probably,
it, brush it, but
right.
you'll get it clean. Now, how do you store it once you get them clean?
Well, here's what you should do right there.
You put it in the wrapper that was shipped in. I mean, half the time I throw mine away.
Absolutely. That's what most people do. But this is part of the tool. The manufacturer designs a neat little closure system, and when you open the paintbrush the next morning, it's ready to use.
So this is a brush that's fairly new
Believe it or not, this is probably a month old, used
Wow.
every day by one of my painters.
and cleaned every day, would be my guess.
Probably cleaned at lunchtime also, twice a day.
And if you store it in here, it's going to be ready to work the next day.
Put away every night in this wrap.
All right. What if you don't store it in one of these little wrappers?
Well, you probably end up with something like this. It's flailed out. It's lost the shape. You wouldn't be able to do a very good cutting job in the morning with that brush.
So can you give this some shape back?
Yeah, just use some solvent or some brush cleaner. work it in there, get them softened, reshape it, and then take a piece of paper or a newspaper or tin foil.
So the point is not to keep the air away from the bristles. It's
No, you
just
just
to
want
form it.
You want to reform it the way it was when you originally bought it.
Fold it up neatly.
That nice crisp shape.
All right. Put a rubber band around it.
Hang it up.
Hang it up. Well, that's great. Excellent tips. Now stay right there. I'm going to go get the rest of my dead brushes.
Okay.
What a wonderful old church, and look at that beautiful dogwood in bloom. And a nice old house. Hi, Carter.
Yes.
Tom Silver from
Hi, Tom.
Astor's Old House. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Come on in.
Boy, I love your old house.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, you must be Amy.
I am. Nice
How
to
are
meet you.
Nice to
Good,
meet
thanks.
you. Boy, this is beautiful. About how old?
About 166 years old, 1835.
That's about my guess. And you lived here for
A year and a half.
a year and a half, so
Yeah.
you're just long enough to find out what the problems are.
That's
You got it.
right.
Now we got to figure out how to fix them. Now, I read in your letter that you have a floor problem.
We sure do.
Yes.
Why don't we show you that?
Okay, and I bet I know what it is. These beautiful pumpkin pine floors. Okay, I see it. We have
Yeah.
cracks in the floors, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, and you want to know how to fix it.
correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem. We've got a 16-month-old son, and as you can imagine, he likes to stick his fingers down in there and
This
pull
is
it.
this is some old caulk or some old wood filler somebody had put in. He pulls this out.
Well, you know that you can clean them out. I mean, they're cracks. What's the
Right.
big deal, you know?
Well, things get lost in there. They're really difficult to clean. The crevice tool of my vacuum fits in something this big, but not something this big. And Play-Doh and all kinds of little things that Sam, our son, is playing with seem to go down there. So I think we if there is a solution to filling those, we'd love to hear about it.
Well, we have a couple of solutions or a few solutions that you could do. First of all, you could rip thin pieces of wood that would fit in each groove and slide it in there and stain it and match the floor. Unfortunately, as that ages, that won't match the floor later on, and it also gives the floor no place to go. These boards expand and contract a lot, and they need a space to move in, and this is what you've got here. We could use a wood filler, obviously. If we do that, that won't come and go with the floor, and as you say, you have a problem with it cracking and falling out. You could also use the latest and greatest in today's caulking, the soft caulking, and maybe you could get something close to the finish, but it's not going to age right, it could dry out, it's not going to perform well.
I think those are all solutions that the previous owner of this house tried, and we moved in, and you can see what happened.
I know exactly.
Sounds like we're running out of options. What can we do then?
Well, if it was me, and I think you guys want to keep this house the way it looks, the way it is, to keep it pure, I would basically simply insert a piece of rope, just like the boat builders do, and just something that they would do to an old house like this to keep the drafts from coming up from the floor. That's the way to go. We can get some rope. I've got some in the truck. We can try some options. What do you think?
That sounds great.
All right. Well, I really wish I had some miracle way of getting this debris out from in between these joints, but we really don't. I'm going to try whatever we have. I'm going to try a plastic knife. A 5-in-1 painter's tool is really great. It has a point, a sharp edge. We're just going to get in there and scrape until we rake the loose out. Just keep working at it. We want to be careful of the edges of the boards. I don't want to damage those. Okay, I've just got some different kinds of rope here, different sizes and shapes. And basically, you can get this at the home center.
Is that regular old rope?
This is regular old rope. We don't want to use any synthetic rope that won't take a stain, because we may want to color or tint this. Now, this is not rocket science, believe me. We're going to do it just like the boat builders would do it. Line it up with the joint and basically slide it in. Now, this is going to go down deep. And as the floor moves, it may come up, the rope may come up, may go down a little bit, and you'll push it back in as needed to be. Amy, you want to try it a little?
Sure.
Just push it down nice and firm. Just don't hit the board. There you go.
Yeah, slides right in there.
It's easy, huh?
Yep. Now this rope is thicker than some of the cracks. Do we just get different sizes? or-
Different sizes, that's
Oh,
right.
some of it you can just push it with your fingers.
Push it in when you can.
Looks good.
Well, it's traditional, too.
Now, if you were to stain this, would you stain it before you put it in or once it's in there?
I would stain it before.
Okay, Tom, I'm having a problem here because the rope's
is-
wider than the crack there.
Okay, Carter, let's take a look. What we're going to do here is we'll back the rope off a little, untwist it, take out one of these strands, snip it out.
And you can use that extra strand on one of these other smaller cracks.
Amy, you know what? Norm would be proud of you. Another Yankee born. Okay, I had some wood stain in my truck, and this particular pigment is Puritan pine. I just dipped the rope in there, pulled it out, we'll let it dry. and try it. Well, what do you think, team? Did we score on that color or what?
Yeah, I think it looks good.
I think it looks great. Well, a few more joints to go. I think you've got it covered. You know how to do it. And we'll see you later. Thanks for all of your help.
Thanks,
Hey,
Tom.
Tom, before you go, could you just leave us your home number?
Right, I'll leave it in the mailbox.
Okay, great.
Now remember, folks, it is your questions that guide this program. So if you're puzzled about some aspect of maintaining your old house, whether it's 2 weeks old or 200 years old, drop us a letter. Shoot us a postcard. Send us an email. We'll try to tackle your question here in the loft. And if it works out, well, we may just drop by your old house. So don't be shy. So until next time, I'm Steve Thomas.
I'm Tom Silva.
I'm Jim Clark.
For Ask This Old House. Is there a line? Email your questions to askthisoldhouse at pbs.org or write to us at Ask This Old House, care of This Old House Magazine, 1185 Avenue of the Americas, New York, New York, 10036. We look forward to hearing from you.